Thank you for joining DFA Caregiver Conversations. Joining us today is Rosalyn Morgan, author and playwright. Thank you for joining us, Rosalyn.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Yes. So today we'll talk to Rosalyn a little bit about her caregiving journey. I'll start with Vicki.
Certainly. So Rosalyn, can you share with us, who did you provide care for?
Yes, I provided care for my mother, Mary Louise Morgan, and she had Alzheimer's, we believe, for probably a little over 12 years, but I didn't find out about it until about 7 years afterwards, because she stayed with me for that period of time. During that time, we found out through her that her brother and possibly her mother had Alzheimer's.
Mm.
Yes. So
was it hereditary in the family?
Unfortunately, I believe it is, because another brother also later on, even though he had cancer, so he had dementia, so it started sinking into him closely later. But she was the youngest of her 9 siblings, so she had it probably the longest.
Okay, thinking back, what were some of the behaviors you overlooked early in the disease?
For me, since I had no idea what was going on, I believe that her constant repeating herself, I'm thinking, that's just her. She's getting older, no big deal. Her forgetting conversations, and misplacing things, and not forgetting where she put those. Again, I'm brushing it off to, she's getting older, we all forget things, no big deal. But they also think, for me, I lived here in Maryland, she lived in South Carolina, so there may have been other things going on that I was not aware of, nor of her, her family in South Carolina. Even though they lived in the same city, they still stayed like 15 or 20 minutes apart, so they probably didn't pick on it as well.
So what was the main event that made you realize that her behaviors were not normal and out of character for her?
Oh my goodness, actually there were two. The first one that really comes to my mind is shortly after we realized something was going on with her. We visited her in South Carolina, and she decided she wanted to cook for us. So she had a gas stove that had an electric element at the bottom that plugged into the wall. Well, the stove wouldn't light. It wouldn't come on. So in her mind, she needed a match to light the pallet. So that was the first thing. She's looking for matches. She's cutting the stove on. We're smelling gas. I'm cutting it off. So we went back and forth. She's getting upset. And to the point, we had to distract her, because if she would have found a match, I probably wouldn't be here today, because she would have blew us up. So luckily, one of her old classmates happened to come by to distract her. So my brother was able to dismantle the stove. Then we just went out and ate, told her, she didn't need to cook. That was one. And then her behavior started changing. My mother was one of those people that when she got mad, she would just give you the silent treatment. You know when she's mad, because she wouldn't talk to you. This disease changed her. She would have crying spells when she couldn't get her way. She had temper tantrums. She would yell, scream. She started cursing, but I'd never in my life ever heard her curse before. So those are kinds of behaviors that kind of made us realize something is going on with her. And still, early in that point, we did not know what was going on, because I never heard of Alzheimer's, nor had I ever heard of dementia. So I was really clueless. We just knew this was not the woman who raised us.
So what made you get the proper, medical attention that she needed?
Well, before I moved her to Maryland, but before I moved her, she did have doctor's appointments in South Carolina, and I chose to go to one of them with her. That doctor was horrible. He had misdiagnosed her. He was giving her medicines for illnesses that she didn't have. He gave her medicines for like heart problems and diabetes. My mother didn't have any of that. Once I moved her to Maryland, and I was given, a friend of mine recommended a doctor, Dr. Bone, and he took her to every test you can imagine until he found a possible diagnosis. And before he actually told us exactly what he thought it was, he also told me to go to a neurologist. I ended up going to 2, because the first one I really wasn't satisfied with. The second one confirmed what he said, that she had possibly Alzheimer's. Because again, my mother had no other illness. She was an extremely healthy woman. That was the only problem, that something was going on in her brain.
So, you know, you understand the GEMS model. And for those of you who are not aware of the GEMS model, it's on the Dementia Friendly YouTube channel. So you can go there and find out about the GEMS. But can you tell us, what stage was your mother in the GEMS model when she was first diagnosed?
We believe that she was possibly into the emerald, going towards the amber stage at the time, because she was still doing things. She could still drive. She could do some routine things. However, we knew something was wrong. Okay, constantly repeating herself, forgetting words, forgetting events, forgetting appointments, getting very emotional and upset quickly, which is that was not her, when things didn't go her way. Constantly saying things that just did not make any sense. That's when we knew something was really wrong. And again, as the disease progressed, she started getting, you know, she started turning into a pearl, where she stopped walking and talking and swallowing and stopped eating altogether.
Wow. So seeing her go from an emerald, where, you know, she's naturally flawed, but not knowing the flaws within herself, and still being able to maintain some of that routine, and then transitioning to a pearl where she was just a shell within herself. Right. How did the family, you know, how were you able to cope with that?
It was extremely difficult, especially for me as a primary caregiver, because number one, I worked a full-time job. She stayed with me the entire time. We had decided not to put her in a home because my brother and I felt that she took care of us. It's now our time, mainly mine, to take care of her. So seeing that transition, how her behavior constantly changed, was really, for me, unbearable at some times. But I was determined I was going to do the very best I could to take care of her and do whatever I needed to do. And my children also struggled with it, because she was here with us, them as well. And they saw the transition. This was not the grandmother they knew. They had no idea who this person was. So like I said, the constant bickering back and forth, and she's determined she's not going to listen, to the point at one time she refused to swallow food just because she didn't want to do it. So her jaws would just blow up because she wouldn't swallow the food, just sitting in her mouth. And sometimes she would try to laugh because obviously the food was going to come out of her mouth. So she could be a jokester at times as well. So it was difficult.
And you got through it, and, you know, and that you're able to be here to share, you know, that journey with those that are watching us.
Yes.
Good. So Shonda, so I'm sure you have some questions for Rosalyn as well.
Yes, Rosalyn. So this question is like a two-part question. The first part of the question, what advice would you provide for someone who's deciding to care for their loved one at home, or choosing to put them in a facility? And I'm asking that question because, you know, people can be judgmental when you say, I have to, you know, put my mom in an assisted living facility. I can no longer do it myself. And so what are some tips, or what is some advice that you would provide for someone who's trying to make that decision?
My advice to them is do the research. Now, there are actually three. Some people, I have friends of mine who decided to leave their parent at their own home, like, instead of bringing them to their house at the time. So do the research, talk to family, talk to the medical, your doctors. Then you have to ask yourself some questions. What does that mean? If I decide to leave my parent or my loved one in their own house, what are you going to do if they decide to wander? You have to make a decision. Are you going to bring them to your house or facility? So you got to really talk that through with your family. If you decide to bring them to live with you like we did, bring some of their belongings to your home. set those things up in their room so they will feel this is their house. Like we brought out some of my mother's furniture. We brought pictures. We brought little trinkets that are familiar for her, you know, her, so she would see these things. And also the other question is, when you're not there, what are you going to do with your loved ones? I quickly had to set up a plan because my mother decided she didn't want to stay in the house and she decided to leave. So luckily I had neighbors who saw that, and one day I couldn't reach her because I would call her every day. I had to dash home, and she was outside with the dog and they were talking to her. So I had to make a plan, and I decided to search out the adult daycare facility, which was awesome. They picked her up in the morning before I went to work, and they brought her home after I came home. And they had activities, they took trips. She loved it, even though when she got home, she forgot to swim. But it was a good thing, you know. It helped me, and also it helped her. Now, if you need to put your loved one in a facility, because I truly understand this disease can take you there. It's extremely difficult. Again, do your research. Check out the facility, talk to staff, talk to people who have loved ones there to see how they're treated. Look at the activities this facility does. There's a lot of things, and do not settle. I mean, don't let anybody tell you how to handle your loved one. You know what's best for you, and that's my advice to anybody.
Okay, so part two of that question, you kind of already provided some things, but what are some tips that you can provide for caregivers who are currently on this journey? You know, what are some things that you can share that would help, you know, to just encourage them as they're on this journey?
There are several things. Number one, try to take care of yourself. Oh my goodness, don't do what I did. I was so wrapped up into her world, I forgot about myself, and I was exhausted and literally burnt out. Do have family, close friends to help you. When you need that break, contact them and say, look, I need somebody to come because I need to get away. I know due to COVID, it's kind of difficult to go out and do a lot of things, but still have that person come and take time and spend with that person while you go to a store, shopping, someplace, so you can just, even if you go into a park and just sit there by yourself, just to take a breather. And also, if there's sleep, that's a perfect time for you to get yourself a break. Take a spa bath, read a book, pray. There's a lot of things that you can do, but sometimes you have to get innovative. And also, there's a program called a respite program. Take advantage of it. They will help you. They will have somebody come and sit with you for a little while where you can go and, you know, get a breathing time. Again, the caregiver definitely needs me time to get away because it can be extremely stressful. That's another, and again, pray, ask God to give you guidance because you're going to need it. Learn also how to go with the flow of the loved one. Your loved one is going to say things and do things that make no sense whatsoever. But learning to listen to them, because sometimes they just want you to listen, even though you don't know what they're talking about. Just listen and let them talk. Another thing, this is an example that I did. I made the mistake of bringing my mother's car here from South Carolina. Huge mistake. That caused a lot of problems for me. She was determined she was going to take her car, get the keys, drive back to South Carolina, and never come back and live in Maryland again. So luckily I had the keys. However, it was so unbearable that I had to figure out what to do. So eventually I got rid of the car. So my advice in those situations is try to learn how to be sympathetic. I didn't do that. I was just going off, man. You can't drive anywhere. Didn't work with her. She told me, you're not going to tell me what to do. I'm an adult and I'm your mother. True, that was true. However, I had her best interest at heart. So sometimes you have to learn in a nice way how to reason with them. Give them praise and give them comfort them because they need that. And that sometimes helps them, especially when they get very agitated. And please do not challenge them. That makes it worse. Patience is a virtue, and that is so true when dealing with someone with Alzheimer's. And again, ask for help. You have family members, you have friends that you can trust. Have them come over and give you the help that you need, because that is so important. Support groups like Picket Fences and the First Baptist Church of Glenarden support groups, awesome. I wish I had one when I was going through that. Join them. Camaraderie is so, so helpful.
That's awesome, Rosalyn. Great tips. And one of the things that you shared in your tips is something that I was going to ask you about, like how important was self-care for you? And you basically answered that. I think that we should take care of ourselves, you know, and you hear people always use the example of the airplane, and, you know, when they tell you to put the mask on yourself first before helping others. But it is so true that, you know, we must take care of ourselves as we care for others. And so I love that you highlighted the things that you did as you care for your mom, how you care for yourself as well. But I know there's some other things that you can share with us. You're very involved in the community in different areas, but share with us some of the things that you're doing to continue to advocate and educate the community about Alzheimer's disease.
There's a couple of things. I am engaged in the support groups. My desire is to get the word out about Alzheimer's and help as many caregivers as possible. I have several caregivers call me constantly and talk to me about what they're going through. I'm always available. I am involved in various organizations, but volunteering, also donations. I also wrote a book about my experience with this disease. The book delves into what my family and I went through as we took care of my mom. And not only does it gives my story, but it also gives tips. It also gives lessons that I learned that can help other caregivers, and it also gives resources. So that is something, and I've had several people who have read the book say they use it as a resource. So when their loved one does something, they know they go to the book and find out, well, what did Rosalyn do? And it has helped them. And also the book turned into a play, and the play is called Laughing in Spite of. The book is called Laughing to Keep From Crying. This Alzheimer's thing is no joke. The play was called Laughing in Spite of. And again, it talks about, it goes into my story, and even in the play, we give tips. There is somebody called Ozzy in the play, and he talks about the whole process of Alzheimer's. So those are things that I have been definitely involved in. I will continue to spread the word as much as possible to hopefully find a cure for this disease and to help as many caregivers as possible.
Excellent, Rosalyn. And so please share with us, you know, where people can find your book, how they can find the book, how they can have access to the play.
Awesome. The book is on Amazon. You can purchase it there. And as far as the play, you can get the play off of my website, which is www.rosalynfmorgan.com. It is available there via DVD and also streaming. So that's definitely available. And also you can get the book there as well. And also you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So please, I think it would be a blessing to many of you.
Thank you, Rosalyn. Excellent job, Rosalyn. You shared some great information on, you know, what you went through during your caregiving journey, also what you're currently doing. And the play was excellent, and the book was excellent as well. So I would encourage whoever is watching to actually, you know, check into how you can receive those products. Now, Rosalyn, one thing that I wanted to go back to that it escaped me now. Oh, yes. One important thing that I would like to end with, when you talked about how your mom, when she was down in South Carolina and going to the doctor there and then coming here to actually get a real diagnosis of what was going on with her. One thing I would like to share with all of you is to do what Rosalyn did. She didn't stop with that one doctor that didn't, you know, provide a diagnosis. She moved on to another doctor. we are our own best advocate. And when we know something is wrong, we should seek to find out what it is. And if one doctor is not giving us the answers we need, we can always move on to another doctor. So thank you for sharing that and how you moved on, and you just didn't accept, you know, the first diagnosis, or non-diagnosis, I should say. But
Right.
I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much. Look, I appreciate all that everything that you and Vicki are doing. It's just such a blessing, but we have to find a cure and have to get the word out and educate people about the Alzheimer's disease and dementia, because so many people are in the dark and are just confused as to what to do. I hear this so often. And I'm praying constantly for all the caregivers out there. I understand, I feel you, and I understand what you're going through.
Well, thank you for joining us for DFA Caregiver Conversations. We'll see you the next time.